So, this is a bit of a different one. First off, apologies, firstly for how I look, and secondly if you can hear any other sounds in the background. I'm currently filming this on June 26th, where the weather in the UK for the past week has been a smidge toasty, and seasonably warm. Flippin' sweltering. So forgive me, but I've got the window open. Over the past few years, a few series that I like, mostly Doctor Who I will admit, I've had these big multimedia events with large overarching stories spread across all the various spin-off media. I've always been interested in them, but for one reason or another I've never been able to completely follow them as they go. Doctor Who's 2020 event, Time Lord Victorious, is just sprawling. There's so much of it. Since release I've been able to do about this much of it, with all these still to go. There was another in 2023 for the 60th anniversary, Doomsday, which I have done very little of, basically just the Big Finish audios. Stingray did one for its 60th anniversary, Deadly Uprising, which I've so nearly completed, I just need to find the time to sit down and finish off the Battle Lines comic anthology. Also note that when Stingray used a live event as part of its multimedia story, it made sure it was available online and on Blu-ray for those who couldn't attend, which is more than could be said for Time Lord Victorious. There's also due to be a Thunderbirds event in the same style later on this year, Hidden Dangers. Before that, however, there's another Doctor Who event, Circuit Breaker, with a very interesting choice in lead character, the Fugitive Doctor, as played by Joe Martin. The release list looks both manageable and within budget, and as it seems that we might not be seeing the Doctor on television for a little while, I thought it might be nice to try and follow along with this one. So that's what we'll be doing over the next few months, alongside the normal style of video, following along with Circuit Breaker and keeping an eye on where everything is going. Let's get started. Let's start with a brief recap for those of you who haven't been following Doctor Who for a few years. Halfway through Jodie Whittaker's second series, the 13th Doctor came across an individual with a TARDIS calling herself the Doctor. Neither recognised the other, and this Doctor was a fugitive on the run from the Time Lords. By series' end, it was explained that the Doctor had lived lives before their first known incarnation, working for a mysterious group called the Division, before having their memories wiped, forcibly regenerated back into a child, and living anew as just another Time Lord. The point where our Doctor, starting with William Hartnell, begins. The Fugitive Doctor was one of those earlier Doctors, explaining why she had no knowledge of the 13th Doctor, and also the retro-inspired look of her own TARDIS. In the years since, the Fugitive Doctor has made a few cameo appearances, even as recently as Ncuti Gatwa's second season.
I was busy in a different story that might be finished one day.
Since then, she's also appeared in a comic that I have read, and some Big Finish audios that I want to listen to, but my poor wallet. The Fugitive Doctor is a very different character to the rest of the Doctors. Obviously all the Doctors are different to each other, but her placement in her life before the series begins allows her a greater freedom of characterization than the other Doctors. The Fugitive Doctor can be spiky, abrasive, and is notably more willing to present herself as willing to use weapons, even if it is ultimately a bluff.
The Doctor never uses weapons.
I know. Shut up.
We've also seen very little of her present in the narrative. Fugitive of the Judoon is her biggest appearance to date. Her appearances in The Timeless Children, The Power of the Doctor, and The Story in the Engine being either holograms, representations of the Doctor's mind, or a cue to the audience as to when an episode's backstory took place. Once Upon a Time sees the Fugitive Doctor on a mission from Division to the Temple of Atropos, with the 13th Doctor mostly taking her role physically, and her companions taking the roles of the Fugitive Doctor's party, and the Fugitive Doctor appearing briefly at key moments. Circuit Breaker is arguably the biggest outing this character has had to herself thus far. The first story, Calling the Doctor, is presented on the Unit Time website as a report by recurring TV character Osgood. The 25th came, I got the email saying that the first story had been released, I logged into the website and... Not the best start, I'll admit. After returning to the homepage and clicking the link there, I eventually made my way to the story. This is a scene setter, and I do like the idea of presenting it as a unit report. The images presented with the story do a good job of filling in any visual gaps that would normally be filled with narration. The only bit that sticks out to me as odd is the description of Andrew calling the Doctor, which seems far more akin to normal prose as opposed to a more neutral report. Andrew's a little bit of an odd inclusion, but he's necessitated by the overarching structure of the story. He's reportedly an even bigger fan of the Doctor than Osgood, someone so interested in the Doctor that she engages in in-universe cosplay. Despite this, he's not heard of the Fugitive Doctor, but the implication is that Osgood and Unit have been keeping the Fugitive Doctor secret, so that kind of works. In a story like this, you need someone to be familiar with the Doctor but unaware of the Fugitive Doctor, but in that case surely Osgood might do. However, I can sort of see a justification. Osgood has actually met the Doctor. Any hero worship for the Doctor that Osgood has kind of dies down a little over time. She's much more cool with the 12th Doctor in Death in Heaven than she is with the 11th Doctor in The Day of the Doctor. Andrew's a little different in that he's never met the Doctor. Osgood knows the Doctor the person, whereas Andrew knows the Doctor the myth. His image here is portrayed by Amari Douglas, who you may have seen in It's a Sin as Roscoe, and Douglas will be popping up in a later release, Full Circuit by Big Finish. The story mostly details the sudden arrival of several objects at UNIT's Black Archive, somehow linked with the Doctor, with their arrival causing tears in time across London which will eventually doom the city to its destruction.
Oh, shame.
All of the items that arrive are surrounded by mysterious blue energy, and have been taken out of time so that they won't be present when the Doctor is due to encounter them. In some ways this feels like a story that's primed for an anniversary. The Doctor has to go back and make sure events in their history aren't meddled with, the twist here being that it's a version of the Doctor who has yet to go through all of these events. We also see our first enemy of the story, a weeping angel sent to UNIT and trapped by its own reflection in a window. Bit of a tangent, I've never found the weeping angels to be that scary. The idea is effective, yes, but they just seem like another Doctor Who monster to me when they first appeared, not really worth coming back so many times. Regardless, the fact that a weeping angel has been sent, as well as the tears in time, indicates to UNIT that whoever is sending the items isn't the Doctor, but is more likely someone or something targeting the Doctor. Andrew eventually learns about the existence of the fugitive Doctor and, contrary to Osgood's orders, contacts her. He details a device he's created to restore the flow of time around the displaced objects and allows them to be put back into their proper time and place. I like the way the Doctor is presented here, very aloof and dismissive. I can really imagine Joe Martin delivering this dialogue. It's a heightened interaction to maximise the impact on Andrew, but it clearly establishes that we'll be leaning into a very different side of the Doctor than we normally get to see. I also love the logic of why it's the fugitive Doctor that's called, rather than any of the versions of the Doctor that UNIT normally deal with. She's the earliest version that they know about and therefore least likely to have been affected yet. One thing I'm keen to see in a fugitive Doctor story is her later reputation preceding her, causing conflict with both her allies and her enemies, as they expect her to play by a different rulebook. And we sort of get that here. The Doctor refuses Andrew's call for help, leading to Andrew calling her out. You might be hurt and alone, but you don't run from a fight. You don't run from people who need you. Is that true? Is that what you really think of me? Yes. Then you don't know me very well at all. If Andrew goes on to be a companion character during later installments of Circuit Breaker, this provides an interesting tension for the two of them, and it's something I'd hope to see explored in detail a bit later on. 2 days later, the Doctor phones Osgood, saying that she's changed her mind and is in the UNIT lab waiting to get started. And that's it. This short piece is only really meant to be a scene setter, but colour me interested thus far. Nice simple overarching plot, the threat established, all three leads have been brought into play. I'm curious to see where it goes next. As far as this story's purpose goes, job done. The only bit I would question is why some bits are hidden behind passwords. I get that it's to make it feel more like you're actually a UNIT employee using their IT systems. Look, they even give you a little badge and everything. But it breaks up any kind of flow when the story stops and you have to go back and find the password. And it looks odd to have random letters in otherwise ordinary text capitalised. I enjoy reading, but I'm already at one barrier reading off a screen rather than paper. Extra work on top to get the next paragraph is yet another. Obviously we don't have much to go on yet in terms of what's going to happen, but we're Doctor Who fans, when has that stopped us speculating? Mild spoilers if you've not followed any of the official pre-release information. The big question is who is sending random artefacts from the Doctor's life to UNIT? We know some of the enemies confirmed to take part thus far. Firstly, this story presents a list of the various items that have arrived. A Dalek gun, mass from Clockwork Droids, a memory worm, a weeping angel, a time ring, the Carrier Knight's globe, and 2 Sontaran artifacts. Secondly, both the cover for the upcoming audio The Deadliest Weapon and the most recent DWN cover confirm that the Cybermen, specifically the 80s Cyber Neomorph design, will be making an appearance. Initially I thought it was odd that the Sontarans had 2 items in the collection. In addition, the Sontarans are also the only enemies to appear on the website banner, though admittedly you do see a Dalek saucer and an 80s cyber ship. The Sontarans might make a logical choice as the key baddies. They've encountered several versions of the Doctor and have had time technology right from their first appearance, something you can't say for the Daleks or Cybermen. Handily, one of the graphics on the website shows which artifacts will be relevant in each story. For example, the Deadliest Weapon, as well as dealing with the Cybermen, will also deal with the memory worm. And then I remembered this symbol by one of the later entries, Kaleidoscope. And if you're looking for villains thematically tied to forgotten things and who have dabbled in time travel may not be very good at it yet, then the Silence are your lads. The energy they shoot out of their fingers is even blue if that ties into the glow around the displaced objects. If that's the case, are we dealing with the organisation, the Church of the Silent, or an offshoot like Madame Kaverian's lot, or just the silent aliens themselves? Or am I overthinking all this? There's two other possibilities. Either an established enemy not yet advertised as being part of the story, like, say, the Master, or a completely new enemy as yet unknown to us. The latter solution is not impossible, but the setup so far has been so continuity heavy that it seems unlikely to me. I suppose there's always a chance that Andrew or Osgood take the turn to evil, you'd never know. As for a curveball existing villain, I hope it's not the Master. I like the Master, but it's always the Master. I'd hope it wouldn't be any Time Lord, except for the Monk. If Rufus Hound or Gemma Whelan get added to the Full Circuit Big Finish product page, then I'll be a very happy man. I think it's going to be the Silence. I'd like it to be the Sontarans. I'd love to be surprised. I look forward to watching this back in 3 months and seeing just how completely wrong I am. In fact, let's alleviate that. My list of suspects is everyone in the known universe. In terms of what I'm looking forward to, I really want to see how the Doctor ends up clashing with Osgood and Andrew. I just really want to see how that gets executed. I'm also just excited to spend a bit more time with this version of the Doctor. As mentioned before, she hasn't really had too much time in the spotlight at all, so I'm interested to see how her character ends up affecting the normal trajectory of stories. If you want to read Calling the Doctor, it's available on doctorwho.tv to read for free. The next release in Circuit Breaker is Adversary of the Daleks by Titan Comics. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.